Hello, everybody. It is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical. And if you're watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Andy is back to have another step in our ultimate journey road to 2015 Secret Wars. Andy, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Can't wait to talk about this one. This is a step of the journey.
Oh yeah, for certain. And it's just what makes me so excited is the further we move forward on both of these journeys, it just makes me all the more excited to see how we're going to react and how viewers are going to react when everything pretty much gets to the climax and eventually full circle. But, I also hope at some point in time we'll also get back to the Energon Ultimate Universe and at some point in time the Ghost Machine Ultimate Universe, the Ultimate Journeys and all of that stuff, because that it's all fun and these are always exciting conversations, and today is no different. Today we're going to be going back into the Marvel Ultimate Universe, the original Marvel Ultimate Universe, and we're going to be talking about a very important story, one that has such a lore and such a staple. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the main reason why Brian Michael Bendis got on board this train in the first place. And that is going to be the discussion of the death of Spider-Man, plus a bonus at the very end. Of course, written by Brian Michael Bendis and beautiful art by the legend that he is, Mark Bagley. So, as I said, Andy, I don't know about you, but the truth of the matter is, all of Brian Michael Bendis's work in the Ultimate Universe, starting with Ultimate Spider-Man #1, which is actually a very hot commodity in the world of comics these days, it all leads to this very story. And because of the fact that it's the Ultimate Universe and not the 616 main, there's breathing room for creativity. And Brian Michael Bendis literally drops a bombshell on the comic reading public and gives us a story that hits home so hard, especially now that I've read it the second time. It does hit so hard because when you read it, you kind of feel that Spider-Man in all shapes and forms is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's something so wonderful and hard to read about this story is I think you hit the nail on the head, Steve. It feels like Spider-Man in all his forms is gone. That's really it's such a beautiful coda to the Spider-Man character and such a perfect way to be seen going out that it doesn't just feel like Ultimate Universe Brian Michael Bendis this version, but it really feels like that's the end of the Spider-Man story. And it's whoa. It would,
Yeah.
it's a it's a good read. It's a tough read. And
It's
I feel
quick
like I've
read too.
said, yeah, I feel like I've said a lot of times on the stories we've been reading on our journey that there are these like emotional peaks that we get to. But I really think that speaks to the stories that we choose to read, right? We're reading the important stuff, we're reading the good stuff, and that stuff tends to coincide with the emotional ebb and flow of the stories, right? So once again, here we are in a very emotional moment, live on camera.
And I actually said this to a couple of people this past weekend. I was at the local comic shop that you and I are very big supporters of and fans of. And we were actually talking about the Ultimate Universe because we were also trying to compare it to the current Ultimate Universe that is actually wrapping up very, very soon. And a lot of the people that I had spoken to were people that pretty much read almost of the entire, if not the entire, Ultimate Spider-Man run. And I said to them, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys, I really didn't read much of it.
Mhm.
However, because of me getting so interested in Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars, I wanted to really see all the events that led to it. And just reading this one Spider-Man's Ultimate Spider-Man story alone, I feel like I read the whole damn run. It was like I just opened up this one page on the first book in this story arc, and it's like I already knew where I was.
Yeah.
It was like it was like coming back home to visit old friends. It's like, there's Peter and there's Mary Jane. And it's just like, I know these people. I
Yeah.
know what has happened. I know what their stories are. I know that they're a little bit different compared to what happens in the 616, but at the same time, it's different and yet familiar. And
Yeah.
that's what makes this one story, this culmination, so special, at least to me.
Yeah, and I mean, this version of Spider-Man has lingered in consciousness now that it all kind of gets blurred together. The way that you're saying it's like the end of, it's like the culmination of all Spider-Man, right? It really feels that way because, whether it's the recent movie, whether it's the Marvel Universe films or it's the Spider-Verse films or it's current comics, the kind of take on Peter Parker we get used to seeing now is heavily inspired by Brian Michael Bendis. He really planted his flag into what the Spider-Man character is and how Peter works in particular. Um, so I think that's exactly right. When you open it up, even if you haven't read quote unquote the Ultimate Universe Spider-Man, if you know Spider-Man, you know exactly what you're getting into when you open up the first page of the first part of this story.
And I kind of like the fact that we did do the kind of reading that we did in the Ultimate Universe for our journey, because there's a reference to Ultimate Requiem, which we
Yep.
actually talked about, where the big introduction with Peter is he's in a coffee shop with Mary Jane, and he even told her that J. Jonah Jameson knew who he was, and yet he will not publish a groundbreaking story of Stop the Press and say, hey, I know who Spider-Man is. And the fact that Ultimatum leading into the Ultimate Requiem, because of the fact that J. Jonah Jameson realized that he actually had a heart, and he realized that Spider-Man was a hero, he did do a true act of kindness, because at the end of the day, he knew that this wasn't a special person. This was just a kid. And there's
Yeah.
no reason for me to turn a kid's life into a living hell. But a kid's life being turned into a living hell is what this story is all about, because the other main focus of the beginning of this story is the fact that Norman Osborn, and Norman Osborn in the 616 universe doesn't really get thrown into prison so quickly, but clearly this Ultimate Universe knows that he is a bad dude and he needs to suffer for his crimes. He outwits them, as Norman Osborn does, because we have to remember he is a true evil genius. He is one of the most brilliant minds in all of Marvel, and he knows who Spider-Man is, and he wants to kill him, and he wants to do it in the most painful way possible. And what does he do? He technically forms his own Sinister Six, because he gets Dr. Octopus, the Vulture, Craven, Sandman, and Electro. He frees them all, and he says, it's hunting season, boys. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. And uh, sorry, I had a thought. Oh yeah, I wanted to quickly mention, and obviously we're on our Secret Wars journey right now, but I actually really benefited from our Blackest Night Ultimate journey in this because I kept thinking about identity crisis while I was reading this story. Because when you think heroes that live a life behind the mask and that their secret identity is integral to who they are, I think Spider-Man is the hero who probably comes to mind first for most
Absolutely.
people. Um, and this story is centered around my villains know who I am. My villains know where I live. The stakes are exactly what we were talking about a couple weeks ago in that other video. The stakes are now, it's not me putting my life on the line, it's what I do, putting people I love in peril. Um, and this is a very different version of that story, right, compared to Identity Crisis, but that's what it's centered on. It's the identity is fully revealed. It's not the fear of it. It's, the mask is off. Villains know they don't care to keep the secret, and by the end of this story, the world is gonna know.
Yeah, and speaking of the mask being off, that's another interesting thing, because another thing that actually starts happening in this story is apparently Spider-Man's got a big job to do, and all of a sudden he gets a mysterious phone call, and apparently he looks right out the window and he already knows who it is. Speaking of people who are not wearing the masks, That's Steve Rogers outside, and he says it's time to start training. So
Hmm.
clearly, there are big plans for Spider-Man in the world of the Ultimates, and he is, as far as I can tell, pretty much their newest recruit. But Captain America suddenly has to answer the call because something's going on somewhere close by, and he has to start saving the city. And this is the part that is a little off center for me because of what happened. So clearly there's some bad stuff going down, and yet at the same time there is a plot to assassinate Captain America. And the person who is chosen to take the shot is the Punisher.
This,
And
yeah.
Spider-Man makes the ultimate sacrifice and jumps in the way of the bullet because clearly Captain America is his hero. He takes one for Cap, and not a good one to take.
Hmm. Yeah, and I will say this is one of those things that like we're taking snapshots into this, right? Like our ultimate journey is not everything. It understands the fact that we are not going to have every single side story, every single element. We This is the first time we have seen the Ultimate Universe version of the Punisher, right?
Correct.
So like so there's a little bit that we're missing here. You got to pick it up on the vibe. But at the end of the day, it's a relatively minor point to the heart of the story, which is, Peter living up to what is needed of him in order to theoretically prove himself to Captain America and then to protect the people he cares about. So we gloss over this, but it's one of those things where feel free to read the entirety of the Ultimate Universe if you would like to.
Yeah.
But just accept the fact that this is where we are on our journey.
Yeah, because this is a very this whole moment reminds me of what went on in Doug Moenig's Nightfall,
Hmm.
where as well as Chuck Dixon, who did the Detective Comics series in that
Hmm.
group. But it's like there's clearly a plot behind the scenes to get Spider-Man at his weakest, and the minute he is at his weakest, it's time to jump. And that's another thing that we have to talk about. The Ultimate Universe's version of the Green Goblin. That is insane.
Yeah, so it's a little different than it's not your daddy's Green Goblin. He is a Hulkified, if you will,
Very
version
much.
of the Green Goblin. Obviously, Norman Osborn's still, like you mentioned, one of the more brilliant minds in the Marvel universe, but tempered with this brute force. Because you might not always think of Spider-Man as one of the stronger heroes, but he can throw a punch. And this version of the Green Goblin can stand toe to toe with Spider-Man, to put it mildly. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah.
And another thing that we really do need to touch upon is throughout the entire story arc. I mean, I really want to praise Mark Bagley for his art because I
Yeah.
love the design of this world. It's just so sleek and shiny, and the action really moves on the pages. I mean, the good important thing is I always say it's great to have good artwork, but for me, you don't want the artwork to drive the story. You've got to have the story drive the story. But this artwork is truly the icing on the cake. Like I love the big splash page where you see the Sinister Six being freed, and it's just like I love the designs. Everyone just like looks so menacing. Even
Yeah.
the fact that Doctor Octopus doesn't even want to do this. He's like, I want to go back to my lab and I want to do my. I'm a scientist. I'm not a mercenary. But in the end, he does do what he's got to do. But I love the artwork in this book. It's beautiful.
I was thinking a lot while reading this story about how the panels were laid out in particular. And it was less the kind of design where not that it wasn't very well done, but I'm less interested in talking about scene to scene how the environment was drawn, the characters were drawn in motion, and more interested in what is chosen to be shown and when, and how the scenes cut and what we lingered on. And I thought it was a masterclass in that, the kind of the kind of like direction of the art as opposed to the execution of the art, which is not disparaging the execution. I really did think that the art was well done, but there was a uniquely well done panel to panel. decision about the sizing of the panel, decisions about which pages were going to break that mold. It was really, really well done to keep you turning the page. And it's the death of Spider-Man, and we know that's what it is when we're reading it. I thought that the pacing of it caused an incredible sense of dread in the entire story. And this was a, and I should say this was a joyless read. This was a difficult read. This was a heavy read. This was a you turn the page with a sense of dread kind of story. This was you knew that it was not going to end well. And, you know, characters die in comics all the time, right? They do. We're comic readers. We know this. We've read endings of characters, but this is different.
That's what I'm
This is
trying. That's
different.
exactly what I'm trying to say, because it's like this is almost a decade, or maybe even, since we've had the death of Superman, since we had the breaking of Batman. We've seen the death of the Flash. We've seen the death of Green Arrow. We saw the death of Jean Grey, obviously, in the 1980s. But
We vividly remember Hal Jordan dying on our other video
that,
series.
as well as we didn't even talk too much about it, but when we read Mark Miller's Civil War, at the very end in the epilogue, Captain America is shot and
Yep.
killed. So it's just like we've seen a lot of iconic heroes die, but I don't think we ever saw one since, I would probably think, the death of Superman, that was so emotional and so devastating. Because, of course, Spider-Man, what does he do first? The first thing that he does is he calls Aunt May and he says, gather everybody and get out. They're coming. Like, he knows that this is his fault, and he knows that he has to defend his home come hell or high water. And I think that was the most interesting thing. The fact that we had to remind ourselves that Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, and Johnny Storm, aka Human Torch, are living in Peter's house. And I gotta say, the story during those fight sequences, it was quite incredible to see
Mm.
how the Sinister Six actually beat those guys. It's like you're talking about a kid that can turn himself into fire, and a kid who can turn himself into the ice. Well, Sandman's going to dump a ton of himself onto Johnny and deoxidize. And I'm like, whoa! He
Yeah.
just stopped the human torch. That's brilliant.
They were
Wow.
surprised on the page too. They were like, "What are you gonna do to stop the Human Torch?" And then drop all the sand on him, and it's like, "Oh, right."
It's like
Oh,
it's like that
oh.
it's like that scene from Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when Mikey goes, "Think fast." He thought too fast.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's like even other additional superpowered beings are struggling to prevent the Sinister Six from advancing. And then, of course, eventually Spider-Man makes it to the house and he says, let's go. He
And he's been
knows that he's
shot.
hurting. He knows that he's hurting because he just took a bullet for Captain America. And he's like, I got to do what I got to do. I'm Spider-Man. And pretty much the rest just writes itself.
Yeah. Um, and it's brutal, and he puts himself on the line, and he puts himself on the line for the sake of others, and his identity is revealed, and people are calling Aunt May, and they're being like, "You're not going to
They're
believe
calling
what's going on here. You
ambulances.
got to call an ambulance." And they keep talking about calling the ambulance because I love that. I love that actually. That calling the ambulance is brought up so many times because he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, right? And there is this incredible superhuman fight going on, but there are just people in Forest Hills who can't turn away because this is their Spider-Man. And what do? They try to help in the only way that they can. People really did call an ambulance. And you know what? That ambulance was really coming. I don't know what the hell it was going to do if the fight was still going on when it arrived, but this is their hero from their town, and they're doing what they can to be a part of it. And losing him, I mean, look, I'm sure it hits different than it ever did years ago being a parent now, but Aunt May, I I could barely read. I could
Yeah,
barely
because
read.
she lost
Oh
Ben, and
God. Just not him, her screaming, not him too. I'm just, oh, Christ,
But you
too
want to know
much,
what? But you want to know what the
too
best part
much.
was? The best part was he did what he had to do. It was just like when Superman beat Doomsday. He's like,
Yep,
"Is everybody safe?"
yep,
He's like, "I did it,
he did
and
it.
now I can go."
Yep,
And
he did it.
but you don't want it. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And it it definitely, and I think the reason why this one hurts the most and it really hits home is because of the aftermath. And the aftermath is Peter's not coming back. We live in a world where characters in comic books die and they will get resurrected one way or another. Peter in the Ultimate Universe never comes back. And
Which is,
that's what hurts.
it hurts, but it's really beautiful. And in the the medium of comics, I alluded to this before, we really don't see that. We see miraculous intervention. We see actually it was a double. We see actually here's some miracle. We see actually they weren't fully dead and we have this new technology and blah blah blah. He he really gave everything. He
Mm-hmm.
really gave everything. And in the Ultimate Universe, that's the end of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And
But you want to know what's really interesting? That was Brian Michael Bendis's plan the whole time because we get to our special bonus, which is the true turning point in all of our Ultimate Journey, Ultimate Universe journey, because it all comes down, even though there's still one more piece of this story arc left, it all comes down to what comes after the death of Spider-Man, and it is a mini series called Ultimate Fallout. But there's only one issue that's the most important, and it's Ultimate Fallout 4. It's got 3 short stories. One of them is meaningless to us, but the two before the third one are the most important because this is what Brian Michael Bendis was planning to do. And what do we see? We see the birth of a brand new Spider-Man, but we also see the birth of the Maker. And that is where we'll give our final thoughts, and then we'll wrap this whole shindig up.
yeah, I mean, look, I'll tell you, it's an anticlimactic first appearance of one of my personal favorite comic book characters of all time. And I know that that's a fairly common take to have. Miles is absolutely beloved, and it's fun to see this little story, this little low stakes street level, you know, robbery broken up by this guy. Who is this wearing some sort of, picked up off the rack costume of Spider-Man with the joke everyone's saying the whole time, this isn't bad taste. This isn't bad taste. And what I love about that is I really do feel it's Brian Michael Bendis like acknowledging the critics of what he's about to do, that he's killing off the one of, if not the most beloved comic characters of all time, and he's planning to replace him. Um, you
Yeah,
know,
because
I
that's the thing. The end of the story arc is this young boy reveals himself, and it's a young black kid. And
hell
that's
yeah,
the
brother.
part that throws everybody for a loop. Ladies and gentlemen, we introduce you to Miles Morales.
Hell
But
yeah.
but you know what's really interesting? This is a conversation that I have with so many different people because when you take a look at what's going on in comics right now and what's going on in the comic book movies, all of the arguments about race swaps and gender swaps and all of this. But I always come back to Miles Morales
Yeah.
and why he works and why he is unlike some of these other creations. Like, I guess I'll throw out one of the most recognizable examples when Michael B. Jordan played Johnny Storm in the absolutely horrendous film Fan Four Stick.
Hmm.
But why does Miles Morales work? Because it's not Peter Parker.
Right.
It's Miles Morales, an entirely new character, a half black, half Hispanic boy, born and raised in Brooklyn. His mom's a nurse, his dad's a cop. It's a whole different story. This is not Peter Parker. This is a whole new Spider-Man. That is why he had so much popularity after he was revealed. That's why he still has so much popularity now. This is why the animated films of Into the Spider-Verse are so popular, because Miles Morales is just like Peter Parker. They're both one of a kind. They
Yeah.
are not the same. They may have the Spider-Man uniform, but they are not the exact same person. This is someone entirely new, someone entirely different, someone who you could get in the ground up with and enjoy learning and growing with this character. That is why he is what everybody out there needs to remember if you don't want all of this stupid controversy.
Yeah, but I would say that it's not just that they're both one of a kind from each other. It's that they're both so relatable. And Miles was this beautiful written example of bringing a character that resonated with people for being relatable into the time it was written and being relatable now. And like this kind of just nerdy kid in the city who I there's something about the Miles story that speaks to me, that speaks to my friends, that just he becomes my Peter Parker. He becomes my Spider-Man, right? He's one of a kind. He's his own person. He's not Peter, but at the same time, I think a lot of people see themselves in him, just like they did with Peter, right?
Yeah,
And they share that heart. And look, we'll talk a lot more about Miles because part of the reason we had this as our little cherry on top at the end is A, because the story we read was so goddamn depressing, but B, because we wanted to see this introduction of Miles, because Miles is now going to be a very important part of Secret Wars.
absolutely. And I mean, another perfect example is the whole rumor. Remember when J.J. Abrams and Ta-Nehisi Coates were going to make a Superman movie? And the biggest thing that Superman was going to be a black person, and everybody was so upset.
I apparently missed this entire story, by the
Yeah,
way.
but do you know why everybody was upset? It wasn't the fact that it wasn't the fact that they were going to make a movie with a black Superman. It was the fact that they were going to take the entire Clark Kent story and just do it with a person who was black instead of the original person. The comic book
Oh,
fans
they
were up in
shouldn't do that. They
well, that's what I'm
shouldn't
saying.
do
Like,
that.
the thing was, the comic book fans were screaming and saying, why are you not giving us Earth 23 President Superman? Why are you not giving us Calvin Ellis? That is a Superman that I would adore to see a film made out of.
Yeah.
Or Val Zod of Earth 2. That was what everybody was saying. It was like, you have so much source material to give us a truly wonderful black Superman movie. Don't do the whole
Don't
Clark
do
Kent
that.
story. That's gonna piss people off. And you want to know what happened in the end? The movie never got made, and it never
Yeah.
will get made. But
Yeah.
like I said, that's why Miles Morales is loved and successful, because he's his own entity, his own story, his own person that everyone out there can relate to.
Yeah.
But
It's true.
let's talk about the other interesting origin that takes place in this story, because
Yes.
that's the other big person that's going to have a major role in 2015 Secret Wars, and that is Reed Richards busting out of the negative zone. We did talk about this part of the story when we discussed Ultimate Doomsday.
Yeah.
So he escapes the negative zone and he recruits a whole bunch of people to go into this Superdome that he has officially created in the middle of nowhere, and says, you are the future. You go into this dome, time will be non existent, and you will gain more knowledge than you ever would have imagined. And so will he. And thus the Maker is born. Another Brian Michael Bendis risk that he takes. He kills off Peter Parker to give us a whole new Spider-Man, and now I'm going to turn Reed Richards into the ultimate super villain. That
Yeah.
is why the Ultimate Universe, the original Ultimate Universe, still stands out there as one of the most beloved creations that Marvel had ever given us.
Because it's crazy, and they really did it. And
Because they
we
could.
they could. The the rails were down, the steering wheel was loose, and now here we are with a villainous Reed Richards.
And that's the thing. It's like, to a certain degree, it sort of answers a lot of questions because a lot of
Yeah.
people wonder, what would it be if the smartest mind in the Marvel world is in fact evil? Like, what would happen? Well, we're about to
Well,
find
that's what
out.
we're reading.
Yes. I'm telling you guys, The Death of Spider-Man is an extremely easy, quick read. I read the entire thing in like less than an hour because the art does tell the story just as well as the dialogue, and it's not
Mhm.
dialogue heavy either. I think that's
No,
another reason why the Ultimate Universe was as popular as it was, because it was never as dialogue heavy as some of the original 616,
that's true.
which is
That's true.
good. And you get good writers, you get good artists on top of it. That's why it's so popular. But we're going to be heading into the next episode with the final installment of this second arc in the Road to Secret Wars Ultimate Journey. We're going to be finally experiencing the official reveal of the Maker to the Ultimates. And it is going to be a very interesting thing because it's so cool how both of our Ultimate Journeys are sort of like in sync at this moment.
Yeah.
Because the next time we're going to be here, guys, we're going to be finally talking about Green Lantern Rebirth, the official takeover of the Road to Blackest Night by Geoff Johns. But this is now officially sort of like where we were with Day of Judgment. This is where Jonathan Hickman just slinks himself in just a little bit before he officially takes control of the Road to Secret Wars. So I'm really excited to read the next piece of the Marvel Ultimate Journey with you as well, Andy.
Definitely. Definitely. This was a big piece, and we got more good stuff coming up.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Leave a comment in the box below. I would love to hear your thoughts if you read The Death of Spider-Man, because a question that I would like to know is, did you actually read this when this was happening? Because I got to be honest, I don't recall hearing about it on the news or anything like that. So I'm really wondering just how big this was when it actually happened. And of course, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you're up to date with all of our latest videos, and we will see you in the next one.